Hey, welcome back to the Market Mamas podcast. My name is Becky, and I'm a US-based futures day trader from the Pacific Northwest. I've been trading for just over 3.5 years now and currently focus predominantly on day trading futures instrument for the Dow Jones Industrial Average, otherwise known as YM. So I've dabbled in many types of trading, especially when I was first learning, like options, swing, futures, everything. And I found that I most enjoyed the fast-paced world of intraday futures trading. So I initially started with ES primarily and then fell in love with the way YM moves last year. And so I'm sticking with what works now with her for now. We'll see. And thank you for joining me because I'm super excited today. I get a new trader on with me. So as I get deeper into trading and hosting this day trading psychology podcast, it's like making me branch out and meet more people like on all the different platforms. And it's been really fun. And Brian, I'm not sure if you've met him yet, but he found you. And then he was a guest on our podcast last year. He's an options trader who is also working with futures now. And he's like, dude, this girl Jen is awesome. And so I started looking and I really love the content that you put out and how you're interacting with different traders out there. And so I'm really glad that you agreed to come on today so we can talk trading and we can talk a little bit about your channel and what you do. And your mama, I believe. So welcome to the show, Jen. I'm super glad you're here.
Thanks so much for having me. I don't know who Brian is. I need to know who this is. I'm so happy he connected
He's
us.
Awesome. Right? I think he just stumbled across you. You know, when you're like on Instagram and you have a channel and you post stuff and you start to feel out different traders. And
oh, yeah.
Yeah, he found you and he knew me and he's like, girl, she speaks your language. I'm like,
I love him.
Awesome. It's
Brian,
quite cool how it all like networks.
Yeah, I need to know who this man is.
I'll hook you up.
Yeah, cool.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I'm excited to be here. Thanks for having me.
Thanks. So you trade futures too, right? Tell me a little bit about what you trade.
Yeah, so I trade futures. I exclusively trade NQ right now, but actually it's really interesting to hear you say you started with ES and then you switched to YM because I've had so many people in my DMs and in my comments telling me, you have to try ES, you have to try ES. And I started actually also with options and QQQ. So when I switched to futures, it felt like such a natural transition to just trade NQ because I was the most familiar, with how it moves and especially with how quickly it moves. When I watch other things, I'm like, is this screen, like, did it freeze? Like, what is happening?
Yeah.
So yeah, I trade NQ. I primarily scalp. I don't know why I said primarily. I only scalp. That is all I do. I would like to get into swing trading and some other things in the future, but that's really where my focus is right now.
I think it's because like in your mind, you're like, eventually I'm not only going to be a scalper, but right now it's scalping.
Yeah.
So
I mean, I like not sitting, like the idea of sitting in a trade for a really, really long time. Like number one, I don't have time for that. I have kids. Like I like being in and out and then moving on with my day and closing the charts.
Yeah.
But also just the anxiety of it, like holding something overnight. Like, I don't know if I could do it.
Yeah. I've held some options overnight and it does, like, I just don't sleep good. Like I'm checking it overnight and I'm waiting for alerts to go off. And it's like, I would rather just like lock in my trade, make my plan, find my best execution opportunity, know where my levels are, get it, lock it in, be done, move on, like kids, podcast, like full life. I'm also a part-time nurse still from my previous career. And so it's like, I also am like, let's just get it done. I love that.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. QQQ, NQ is the fastest from what I have studied as well.
Yeah, it moves quick for sure. But that's like what I love about it. Like you can catch 50, 100 points sometimes in a minute or two, which is just wild, So
nice. How did you learn about trading? Like, do you have someone in your family who's a trader and turned you onto it? Or where'd you come up with the trading idea?
No, I have no one in my family who does it. So I'm actually originally from Hawaii. Didn't ever know anything about the stock market whatsoever, except for I married a man in finance. My husband, as you have probably seen through my content, is not working right now. He unexpectedly lost his job back in November, but he was a CFO prior to that. So he's very risk averse and he does not like risk, but we've always invested in like mutual funds and, like the typical indexes, all of that. And so a while back, like my very first taste of trading personally was right before COVID. I was working at the time still. We only had one kid. And I was like, babe, there has to be a better way. Like I love risk. Like I'm like high risk, high reward, let's go. All about the adrenaline, like all of it, right?
Mhm.
So him and I, like, we mix really well. We balance each other out. But he was like, all right, like if you want to learn, like I support you. I wasn't thinking day trading. I was just thinking, let's invest in some like individual securities, things like Tesla and whatever for the long term. And so he's like, got me a subscription to the Motley Fool, if you know what that is.
I started with that too.
Yep. And we put, I don't know, like 10 or 15K in a brokerage account for me. And so I started investing and I'm crushing it. I'm like, yes, this is amazing. Look what I did. And then COVID hit and the market, like, tanked. And I ran away with my tail between my legs and was like, maybe this isn't for me. I lost all our money.
What happened?
Yeah, which obviously it rebounded, but I kind of walked away from it. It was just really bad timing, to be honest. And then I got pregnant again, and I'm like not one of those people who glows when I'm pregnant. I'm like one of the people who like is miserable. You wouldn't like pregnant me. No one does. So I hid for a while pregnant.
Sure.
And then when I had my daughter, who she just turned 2, I stopped working. My career was in nutrition. Actually, I was a performance nutrition coach for about 8 years previous to stopping. And I kind of lost myself when I stopped working in motherhood. And I don't like feeling stagnant. Like I like to be working towards something. And so found this trading group through Instagram, bought the $7 course. I was like, I can buy a $7 course and got sucked in. And that's what I had mentioned with the line chart. So that's the first strategy I started with. That was this last April. And honestly, I didn't get into it. I feel like my story is a little bit unique because most people get into trading because they want to make money. My husband is a great provider. Of course, it would be great. Everyone can always make more money, right? But like, I wasn't like desperately trying to make money. It was really just that I wanted a hobby, something that was like mentally stimulating and challenging me and allowing me to grow and learn. Because when I stopped working, I felt like my brain just like also started to die.
Yeah, there's a saying that if you're not growing, you're dying, and I think that is very true. Because I also like started trading. I'm a nurse for a long time, coming up on 19 years this year, and when I first started trading, it was because I got a significant back injury on a broken bed at work, and I was on leave, and I was like, "This is dumb. Like, what am I supposed to do with my brain? Like, I'm just supposed to like chill at home and watch Netflix?" Because it took me like 2 weeks to read it before I was like, "Nope." Can't do this. I can't handle it. And so then that's when all the 2021, when all the Bitcoin and GME squeeze and everything was blowing up. I was like, I'm going to throw some money at that and see. And you get a hook when your brain has some idle time and you're like the type of person who wants that stimulation and that work and curiosity. I could see how that would fit.
Yeah, totally. And I totally am that person that like, if someone tells me I can't do something, then I'm like I will do it till the day I die to prove you wrong kind of thing. Like that's just who I am at my core. And so the more I learned about it and like all the statistics of, only this percent make it, you're going to fail. And especially now sharing through social media, I'm like, please keep telling me I'm going to fail because like it just fuels the fire. Like keep it coming.
Mm. Yeah, I think that that's awesome because you know what? The fact that so many people fail, like it means that people are going to fall away. And if you keep at it, then that's how you just get somewhere. It means that like every time that you show up and you push past another lesson, it means that you're becoming the more elite of that group of people. And I think that's badass. Like, I think it's cool to be able to be a mom for starters and like pushing through all of that and balancing everything and having to be on with your children all the time, but then able to also like use a side of your brain that you don't otherwise use when you're discussing like how many more bites of the banana they need to eat. That's important work too, because you're raising good humans to repopulate, to like contribute to society. But
right.
It's nice to be able to like engage in that critical thinking and what can I do? Like there is a potential here to like figure this thing out. Like I want to figure it out.
Totally. Yeah. And I'm super big on like the idea that, as a mom, especially, but as a parent in general or a human, like you have to fill your cup first to be able to be your best at whatever you're doing, like your friendships, your job, your kids, especially with kids. I think that like the biggest thing with moms when they transition from like a career to not having a career is that identity crisis. And it is like the most rewarding, but like also the most thankless job you'll ever do, being a mom, right? And so for me, finding this, it's like, this is something that I'm excited about, I'm passionate about, but it doesn't take away from my ability to be home with my kids, which is the most important to me, right? It really is like the perfect balance, I think, once you get it down.
Yeah, I agree. Like there's stressful periods when you're learning where you don't know what you don't know and you fall and you stumble and you have to figure out what the hell. And hopefully you have the right people around you that are guiding you in the right direction, or you figure out how to find them. But it is really empowering to be able to have different aspects of your life that feed the different parts of you. There's so much that parenting does, like you said, feed in you, your heart and your energy. But this training it's a special niche that I think I'm so grateful to have found, because it really just like broadens who I am and it makes me crave more of that. Plus, I think it's such a good example for the kids to see. Like my kids are a little older. I'm 12, 7, and 2. But I think that it's really good for them to see a woman, especially, or any parent, just really pushing their boundaries and being like, yeah, I know that the statistics say that this will likely fail, but you can do whatever the hell you want in your life. And so can I. And that's what I want you to remember out of this period where I'm spending all this time in my office studying late at night and early in the morning. And you wake up and you find me in the office and you go to bed and I go back to the office. I think that that's badass that we are showing children that they can put their mind to something and show up. And that's a big part of my why, of also how there's no way I could quit either, because it's showing them too much value in terms of like personality and energy to build the life that they want to. I love that about training.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree with that. I feel like my husband and I have talked about that a lot, just in terms of like how we want to raise our kids. And like, we're not the biggest people. Like my husband's 5'9", I think, and I'm like 5'2", right? Like we're not huge. And we talk about sports a lot because we both love sports. We watch a lot of football, and we have a 4-year-old boy. And I'm like, I don't want to ever raise my son to think that he can't dream and make it to the NFL if he decides he wants to play football or into the NBA. Like, of course, you have to be realistic about things, but there are statistics that say that, a kid who's max going to be 5'10" probably isn't going to make it into the NFL. Yet there are a handful of people, men in the NFL, playing that are 5'10", So it's like statistics are statistics. Like, you can either choose to just be a part of the rule, or you can be the outlier and like work hard enough and not quit. And you might still fail, but wouldn't you rather look back and say, hey, I didn't quit. I failed, but I didn't quit, than be the one who never tries because you're afraid that you're not going to make it? Like, that sucks.
Right. And that's not any way to live, because even if you try to be in the NFL and it ends up not working, like the effort that you have shown to your college, to your peers, to your coaches, that can branch out in so many ways that you maybe didn't even anticipate. And so in that process of just striving to be your best self, if you don't achieve this one aspect, who knows what doors you open up in the process and who you've convinced that you're an awesome human. And then you could end up finding something else that you love even more maybe than you would have loved with that. And that came out of the effort that you showed yourself in the world based on just striving to be the best at anything. I think that that is a personality component that is lacking more so in recent years as a society.
Yeah.
And I think that this is one way, like you said, that I feel so empowered to continue pushing forward in my journey, because I know that, yeah, the money is great. Like, it's nice to start being profitable as a trader. But I think that the whole energy in our house of like the effort behind something actually paying off over time, even when it's something super hard and their cards are stacked against you, it's a pretty great.
Absolutely. Yeah, I couldn't agree more.
Yeah. So you are posting daily on your Instagram about your trading. Tell me about how that has impacted your trading and how that looks for you and your experience with it.
That is a loaded question, my friend.
I bet.
So yeah, the whole way that me sharing my trading journey on social media started, to be honest with you, was completely organic. So back when I was a nutrition coach, I had a social media, I had a decent following, and then I stopped working and was like, I'm deleting anyone I don't know. And I'm going to keep my stuff super private because it's just going to be like my life and my kids. And I don't think people need to see that, you know? So anyway, that's like a debatable topic, but that's how I felt about it personally. My husband's a very private person and he was like, yeah, we don't need to be sharing, you know, all of that. So anyway, did all of that. Recently decided, you know what? I just want to like start sharing on social media again. I had already been trading for quite some time. Like I started sharing back in the beginning of December, I think, about trading. But previous to that, I hadn't shared anything about trading on my social media whatsoever. I just had my normal followers. And I just randomly one day snapped a shot of like my charts when I was in the office in the morning trading and put it on my story. And I had so many people blow me up like, what are you doing? What is this? I want to know about it. I want to know about it. Like people, moms, mostly my age, right? And so I was like, oh, weird. Cause I'd like mentioned it to a friend or two in passing kind of thing on a play day. And like the responses I got were very like, ew, how boring. Like, why would you want to do that? That sounds terrible. And so it really discouraged me from talking about it to anyone. So it was kind of this like secret thing, right? Not like secret, but just thing. And I got that response and was like, oh, interesting. Like, I guess people are interested. So I just naturally started sharing a little bit more, a little bit more. And then Jaden actually from Team Bull, like I said, he's a friend. And we go to the same gym and I was talking to him and he's like, you like need to start sharing your story and like building your brand. He's really big on building a personal brand and just how that translates to anything you want to do in life. Just with how the world works now, right? Like personal brand is everything, right? And so I was like, okay, like I'll give it a try. So I didn't really have a plan. I was like posting random stuff. Then my husband lost his job and I had listened to a podcast that was talking about growing your social media, if I'm being completely honest with you, which you know by now I like to keep it real. And the only thing I took from the entire podcast is like, if you want people to gravitate towards your story, you have to have a hook and a reason for them to come back. And so I like, it hit me. I was like, I have this incredible opportunity to share my journey now that my husband has lost his job and use that as my hook. Like, here, like I'm going to replace my husband's income. And so I started, you know, the day 1, day 2, day 3 thing. And I had no idea it was going to blow up as quickly as it did. And it's not like it's that big, but I went from, I'm probably going to break 10K in the next day or two. And I only had like 3,000 followers when I started. And that was like 5 or 6 weeks ago. Right. So there's been this massive growth that has happened. And I definitely didn't anticipate the toll that was going to take on me psychologically. I wasn't prepared for it. And now that I am and I've acknowledged it, I don't think it's going to be an issue anymore because I'm actually someone who really thrives under pressure. I just don't do well when there's like pressure I don't realize is there, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that's smart.
Yeah, it was like this subliminal expectation and like almost a rush that I was putting on myself because, especially because of the counting, like the day 1, day 2, that like when I had, you know, a red day, it felt like, oh no, like now it's going to take me so much longer. Like it just like really forced me to rush my timeline. And so I don't know if you've seen the whole development from day 1 to now we're on day 27, but there's been a few accounts blown. There's been some big red days. Story. What was that?
I'm newer to your story. I only found you a couple 2 weeks ago, maybe something like that. And so I didn't get a chance to go back through all of it, but I picked up. I was like, okay, like she definitely has training skills and is posting about it every day, which badass because I mean, people post trades, but it's not always super transparent. I would say, and I feel like I encounter that way more than anything else, and I don't really like put any energy there personally. But when I saw your stuff, I was like, okay, so she's not bullshitting. She's saying when she has a hard day. She's saying when she has a good day, she's trading micros, which also is super smart when you are still like locking in and growing and getting the capital behind it and getting the accounts passed. And so I just really appreciated it. And I could tell that you, you know, are coming from a place of wanting to build it intelligently. And I did see the one where you posted, like, I think that there is some pressure from posting on here daily that's making me feel some kind of way. And I think there's a statement that I refer to all the time in this. It's new level, new devil. And it's like every time you change something in your system or you reach a new achievement, and then you have to like start pushing higher, you start leveraging up or you change something. There's a moment where you're like uneasy. It's uneven ground and you're not even sure why you're on tilt in a certain circumstance until you call it out. Like you said, you like shine light on it and be like, okay, I see what happened here. This is where I'm at. This is why it's different. I need to settle myself in a little bit and then I can keep progressing. I bet that's probably similar to what happened with like posting every day. That is pressure.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I didn't realize how many people were going to gravitate towards what I'm sharing. And it's been really cool, honestly. I mean, I don't know if I shared this when I was mentioning my husband, but like, to be completely transparent, like the replacing my husband's income, like that is a hook, right? Like that is the purpose of it. My husband is a provider. He is actually starting his own consulting thing. He's going to do great. He's going to continue to make money. And like people, are like, oh, you're going to gamble away all of your money. Like they think like my husband's just going to be like a stay-at-home dad. Like that's not the vibe, right? Like I used that to draw people in. But ultimately, my goal is just to become consistently profitable at this point, and not really to put a number on it. I think what's interesting, though, is that as more and more people have followed, I've gotten literally, like, I'm not exaggerating, hundreds and hundreds of messages, private messages in my DMs of people thanking me for sharing. And so even if the pressure of sharing the journey does make it take a little bit longer, like it's actually worth it to me.
Mm-hmm.
It's worth it to me because I don't think people, like you said, there's not a lot of genuine, transparent trading content, especially people who are like in our stage of life, right? Like a lot of the trading content is like 20-year-olds in Lambos, that can sit on the charts all day and just do whatever they want. Like it's not someone who's trying to learn between naps and bedtime and making dinner and, like you, like having another job. Like, and so I think that what I want to do and like what it's really become and evolved into is like, I want people to see my story unfold in an authentic way, all of the highs, all of the lows, and then watch me reach my goal so that they're inspired to do the same thing. Not draw people into this like dream that sets them up for failure because they think they're going to start trading and then like in 3 weeks have a Lambo,
Right. I think that is so smart and shows high integrity on your part because there's a lot out there. I mean, a lot of times people are gravitated to trading because they think it's like you just get to chill at home on your computer and like click buy and sell and you become a millionaire and you get the Lambo. And that is just 100% false. Like it's just hours and hours and hours of studying and learning and falling and messing up and figuring out what your edge is and then fine tuning it and then still screwing up and then getting better. And to just call that out is really awesome. And that's what Market Mamas is too, is we talk about trading psychology and we don't share executions much so far, but it's basically like, you need to like normalize the fact that this is like a big thing that we are pushing through. And, it doesn't have to be clean and easy and always pretty and just the dollar signs. Like there's hard days and there's good days and there's different ways that you grow over time. And it absolutely can be done, by not quitting. And so I think that I really appreciate that of you and that you are showing it, the good, the bad, and the ugly throughout the growth, because that's what we have striven to do as well. And I think that does show the reality of it, which is good for people that are new, because I think that statistically people will quit because they think maybe it isn't going to be what it is. But the fact of the matter is, you have to push through and get good people around you. And so good job with that. And the hook, having to have a hook with social media, it's just the way that it works. You gotta like catch somebody's attention. Like when I putting out, like figuring out thumbnail design and the title for a podcast episode, it's like, there's so much literal science and studying behind that of like how you get eye catching them. And it's like the core of the content of the message is less important until people start following you. And then they're like, okay, she's awesome. I want to find out what's going on with Jen's day. And so that's why I'm paying attention. But initially, in order to get the good word out there, you got to play the game. So
You
I
got
mean,
to.
that's reality.
Yeah. And I think to expand upon what you were saying about like the hard and the highs and the lows, one thing that I also like, I'm really passionate about, or I'm becoming incredibly passionate about sharing, is for people to not take on someone else's journey as like that's what their journey is going to look like. And that goes both ways. So like it pisses me off. It literally makes me so mad. And I put a piece of content out about this a while back, but when people tell me like, oh, it's going to take 2 to 3 years, it pisses me off just as much as when people say that you'll be successful in 2 or 3 months with their strategy, right? Like no one person has the same journey as another person. Even if you learn, even if that person's your mentor, like we all have different minds, different psychology, different things we need to overcome. And as I mentioned, my background is in nutrition, right? And so I spent 8 years coaching people in nutrition. And I see so many parallels between it because I would have clients come to me and, you know, they would see another client's transformation on social media and be like, oh, I saw this. That's what I want. And the first conversation I would have with them is like, that's great that that's your goal. I love that goal for you. But please don't assume that because this person achieved it in 3 months, you're going to achieve it in 3 months. It could take you 3 years. It could take you 3 weeks. I've literally had people drop 20 pounds and be shredded by eating more food in 3 to 4 weeks. I'm not exaggerating. Mm-hmm. But someone else sees that on social media and they think, oh, I'm going to go hire Jen because I'm going to get to eat more and I'm going to be shredded and have abs in 3 weeks. And the first expectation I set with every single client is if you came to me because you saw something and you want the same result, like this isn't how that works. So like the first thing we need to do is drop every expectation and understand that this is your journey. So put on your blinders, stop comparing and focus on you. And I think that's the biggest thing that gets in the way of traders being successful. It keeps them from being successful as quickly as they can in both directions. So like if you think, oh, this person made it in 3 months, so I'm going to make it in 3 months, that's going to screw you over. But also along the same vein, if I sit here and go, oh, well, everyone's saying it's going to take me 2 to 3 years to reach profitability, that could hold me back. Right. I believe that I can be profitable by my 1-year trading anniversary. I truly believe it. If I'm not, I'm not, and I'm going to keep going. But just because someone else said it's going to take 2 to 3 years because that was their journey, that doesn't mean that's going to be my journey.
Yes, there's outliers in everything. And literally day trading in itself is an outlier in the finance world. I mean, I think that is a truly excellent point because we are all different and we all come to this experience with such different backgrounds and life experiences to this point, different ages, different stages, different home environments, different stressors outside of trading. Like it's absolutely going to look different for all of us because we all struggle with different things. You know, there's the argument of some people are more risk averse and some people are more greedy. And it's like, that's just one very simplistic idea of how our issues are going to be completely different with day trading and the support that we have at home and the pressure we have to make money. Like it's so multifactorial that comparison is just going to mess you up versus you can just focus on your journey, your process, what you're doing better each day, what you need to tweak because it's not working for you. And if you can focus on those specific things and tune out the rest of the noise, it's so much more powerful because it's so much less distracting. And the work that you have to do to figure out what you need to fix is a big enough deal on itself. So well said for sure. I have a question. So from your nutrition coaching, how much, because I feel like that would be beneficial coming from both the coaching and then there's also a discipline level to both nutrition and physical exercise that not everyone has. And so I actually lost my nutritional stance through my first pregnancy and the start of my second and struggled a little bit in that department in terms of like body health And then it was when my second pregnancy that I was like, okay, I'm getting older. I got to like lock this down. And then I started dialing it back in with diet and nutrition. And I think that being disciplined in your whole life, and especially in things such as diet and nutrition, makes you a more disciplined person in order to follow rules and personal habits. Do you think that that has been helpful for you in learning to trade?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it definitely is helpful. I have a similar story, honestly. When I had my daughter, I had two C-sections with each of my kids were C-section babies, and my second one was really rough. I had like a OB that was filling in for my OB that it was scheduled with. She sewed me up really tight on one side. Anyway, I went through like months and months of PT, had a ton of pain, lost a significant amount of muscle, went through a lot of like postpartum anxiety, not to get too deep, but like my sister was also battling stage 4 cancer. And so was my best friend at the same time. So I was like balancing all these things. And I didn't ever get like big. I honestly like just lost all my muscle. And anyway, my point is just that I kind of lost myself in motherhood in terms of my discipline with those things. And luckily, before getting into trading, I kind of was like, you know what, like my daughter turned 1. I was like, I need to start getting back to me. And I feel like the more disciplined I get in my training in the gym, my nutrition, even just like my sleep hygiene. Like I'm huge on sleep. And as parents, I think especially at the end of the day, it's like after bedtime and you're exhausted, but you haven't really had time to yourself. So you're like, I just want to like have a little bit of me time. Or even with learning to trade, like sometimes that was the only time that I was able to like watch videos and learn and study. And so finding balance in that and discipline in that as well, they're all important pieces of the puzzle. The one thing I think people don't talk about a ton that I find interesting or really intriguing about trading is that with everything else, it's kind of like the more effort you put in, the quicker you get results. And with trading, I almost feel like it's like the more you push and the more you try and force it, the longer it takes. Like the more it almost I've had to go through this evolution of like, strategy to strategy. I think everyone does a little bit of strategy hopping in the beginning and exploratory stuff. But then like really trying to force things and like setting these outcome based goals and then like having to eat my words and be like, actually, that really wasn't the right way to go about this. It's a really unique part of, I think, trading psychology that doesn't apply to much else in life, in the sense that, if you're trying to get stronger in the gym, if you're showing up, even if you have a day that doesn't feel good, you know that there's still value in it and you're still pushing towards your goal. Whereas with trading, I just feel like there's this disconnect where if you push too hard, you almost throw yourself off, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I do. I think you can squeeze it too much. You can put too much pressure on, be like, I need to stay up later and get up earlier, and I need to watch the chart all throughout the New York session. And it can be like too stimulating, too overstimulating, where you're like, I could catch this and I could have caught this trade. And it makes you want to get in the market more sometimes. And that's dangerous versus if you can take a step back and almost just watch it like side eye and be like, I know what a good setup looks like. I want to have some patience. I'm going to like do this other multitasking thing. And if I see a great setup, then I want to engage in it. And oftentimes if I can approach the market that way, I have a beautifully clean day because I'm not like hunting and watching every candle and I got up early and blah, blah, blah. But if you're just like letting it flow out of you, once you start learning a system and a skill set, it can go much more smoothly. And so I think that once you do have an edge and you are getting some consistency with it, not squeezing it and adding pressure does make a lot of sense, because putting it overtime can almost just muddle it in your head. You look at so many candles and so much different back testing. It can just make it distracting and heavy and not be helpful. So I think that's a great idea.
Yeah, it's very unique in that way, I think.
Yeah. When you trade, are you very consistent with your system, or do you ever struggle with like holding too long or not accepting a stop loss? Have you found that you struggle with any of those psychological hurdles?
I mean, I've struggled with every psychological hurdle you probably have ever heard of, I think. I don't like to lose. That's my biggest issue, is like I am incredibly competitive. And so accepting a loss is very difficult for me. So I'm very good at following my rules when I'm green. I like to be one and done. I hit a green trade. I don't struggle a ton with FOMO and like trying to jump back in, things like that. Like, a little bit, but I would say my biggest psychological hurdle is accepting losses and like accepting the one step forward, or two steps forward, one step back, whatever that is,
Right.
You know what I'm saying. Actually, to create another parallel between nutrition and just how it's helped me is like recently one of the biggest epiphanies I've had as I've thought through why am I struggling so much with losses is the fact that it's so similar to like someone on a weight loss journey, right? Like when you're trying to lose weight, the worst thing someone can do is live and die by the number on the scale every single day, because it's never gonna like just drop, right? It's going to drop, especially as a woman. We have cycles. There's lots of different things that influence our weight, right? So it's very normal to go down and up and down and up, and sometimes up a lot and then down a lot more. Like there's all these different things. Stress impacts it, sleep impacts it, our cycles, right? And when people hyperfixate on that number on the scale, it sabotages them, because what they want to do is they see, okay, I lost, 3 pounds yesterday and now I'm up 2. Clearly what I'm doing isn't working anymore. And then they want to change something. And as a coach, I'm the one who's always like, listen, like we haven't proved this isn't working. Okay. It's not linear. We got to trust the plan, give it a month, be consistent. And then if it's not working, then we'll change something. But if you're changing your plan every single day, you're never going to find success, because you're not actually giving it a chance to work. And I think that that's one of the biggest things that like clicked in my brain. I'm like, Jen, this. Like it's literally the exact same thing. Like the number's going to go up. It's going to come back down a little. It's going to go up. It might come back down a lot, like into drawdown, but I can't let that break me. If I trust my system, then I have to trust that when a month is over, I'm going to end up having, in this case, hopefully a higher number in my account. Of losing weight, you want it to go down, but same concept, right? And so I think that that's really where my focus is this month specifically, is like not being tied to the day-to-day number, whether it's red or green. Know that I'm following my system, know that I have good risk management, follow my rules in terms of being one and done. And then let's see where we're at the end of the month. And if it's not working, then I'll change something, rather than like every time I have a loss trying to go in and like, what didn't work? Like sometimes a trade's it's just not going to work out. Just like sometimes you're going to hop on the scale and the number's going to be up. Like it doesn't mean you did something wrong.
Right. That's a great parallel and an example, because a totally like landfall move is not sustainable, and it's not realistic, and it's not the whole picture of what's going on in a certain circumstance. I mean, even when the market does that or your weight does that, either thing has a huge move, there's going to be a period of correction. That's what happens with the bullish trend of the stock market since its inception, right? It pushes up and it pulls down, and that is actually a healthy trend. And I think that our P&L and our account cycles are going to be similar. And that is just with how we grow as traders, is you have to learn and get really good. And then you hit a new level, and then there's going to be a minute where something goes wrong and you didn't read the move right. And that's the importance right there of having strong risk management and being able to take a hit and be wrong here and there, because that's also funny enough, my biggest issue too is being wrong, because when I am green, it's all happy, which is probably more common than when we know. But
right.
when it's coming against you, you're like, nope, I'm on a winning streak. Like I'm not interested in having a red day. What the hell is happening? And it's harder for me to take a stop out versus giving it a little more room has been my kryptonite, because I would rather like maybe this other support is going to hold. If this one didn't hold, this one more support level could hold, and I still could be right. And it's like that, you have to really figure out who you are and what your kryptonite is, and then manage that with an ironclad risk management system so that you can keep the pullback small in your equity curve and then keep it climbing. And I think, the more you know about yourself and you recognize what your pitfalls are is how we can break through to the next levels. And that's funny when you said that. I was like, oh, sounds like me.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's
Yeah. I was the one who had to be sat out of the family games growing up because I was too competitive, because I would I would never let the little kids win in high school. Everyone would be letting the little kids win the potato sack barbecue race. And I'm like, no, you can win it when you earn winning it. You can't just win. What are you talking about? I won,
I showed up with skill and I persevered till the end. I want the crown.
Exactly. But yeah, I mean, I think we all have our struggles psychologically. And I think, obviously, this because you're already profitable and successful and been in it so much longer than me. But I think what I would have wished I knew in the beginning was how much more trading is about psychology than it really is about your strategy. The other thing that really just drives me nuts on social media is people hating on other people's strategies. There are a million strategies out there that work genuinely. And if it works for you and it's simple for you, that's what's important. And the most important part really isn't your strategy. It's, do you have confidence in your strategy? Do you have an edge? And can you handle the losses? Can you deal with all of the psychological ups and downs? Because I've traded many different strategies and been profitable with all of them, actually, including that first one I started with the line charts. I was also profitable at one point with that. But I think it's which one feels the most simple, which one works with your schedule. I like the strategy I'm trading now because it works really well. And there's pretty much always a setup when I am in my 45-minute window of being able to trade before I have mom duties. Mm-hmm. But what's held me back with each strategy is not the strategy. It was my mind,
Yeah, I think it's an excellent point because you are very right that there's so many different ways that you could look at the market and understand it and which data speaks to you most clearly, which if you use indicators, which one and where they present and what that means to you. And I think that I agree, there's so much variability in what strategies people have that are profitable. And ultimately, hopping around works for a little while and you have to until you find the thing that speaks to you. But once you find something that speaks to you, I think that there's tremendous value in sticking with it for several months and doing back testing as well as live trading and then working through it. And I agree. Just having tipped the scale to profitability last year for me, it was the psychological breakthroughs that I got through. I switched mentors 2 years ago to who I've been with since then. And he was a game changer for me in terms of what he teached, how he trades, how he sees the market, and how he educated us. And that gave me the edge. So then why wasn't I profitable a year and a half ago when he was teaching that same edge? Well, it was me. I had to come around to the fact of what he was teaching and why, but then also what it looked like to hit some early profits and then hold steady there and allow it to compound and to trust myself and to know when to be in micros versus in minis. And there's just so many levels, I feel like. And that's honestly something that I love about day trading is that there is limitless potential. That's another reason why I'm I feel like I am so young in this game, despite having been in it a couple of years and getting through some barriers last year that I thought I would never get to at certain points. Now I'm this is the beginning. I'm still at the starting gates because I can still have plenty of time to fine tune my skill, but I'm figuring out what my triggers are to having the days that really wreck my progress. And I'm getting past those. And so the fact that we can keep working with our minds and getting stronger as humans with our personalities and our disciplines and our life balance and our family supporting us and knowing when our trading time is best and when our setup happens, that's another skill that helps us get more profitable faster. Allowing it all to build has been so exciting for me in recent months because I can feel kind of the momentum gaining. And it's the realization from this vantage point of I wanted so long to be here. And now that I'm here, I'm happy to be here, but I feel like there's so much more potential. So I just, to everyone who's trying to get their footing in day trading and watching Jen or I or whoever you engage with on social media or online, I think the overarching message, like, don't quit, because like you can figure out new level, new devil, and like start learning and getting better. And it's like limitless.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, don't quit. I have I like moved my office. I'm actually in a basement bedroom, just like full disclosure. It's not an actual office because my husband has our actual office. Anyway, when I set it up, I have this little word thing, we used it for our kids' pictures and stuff when they were little. But my husband's like, what are you going to put on there? And the day before I blew my last 7 funded accounts that I blew, I was like, I think this is what I want to put on there. And it says, be the one who didn't quit. I don't know if it's backwards for you.
Perfect.
But I feel like, one, it was exactly what I needed to look at right after I failed those accounts, because all I wanted to do was quit. But I think that trading is one of those things that if you don't quit, you will be successful. But you have to be willing to like look at yourself, be honest with yourself, like recognize what you're doing to get in your own way, because it's not your mentor's fault that you're losing trades or you're failing. Like, what are you doing? And also the other thing, like the piece of advice that I would give people that I wish I knew was take your time. Like, I was in such a rush from the beginning, and I've wasted so much money on like trying to do too much too fast. Like, if you really think about it, you could get one eval account, with even with Apex, like right now, their evals are like $16 or whatever. And you could get on a subscription and spend the next 12 months practicing and learning and just trying to prove that you can pass one account. What is the equivalent of $16 times 12? I suck at math. I don't know, but it's not a lot, And then maybe you add in 100, 150 bucks to be a part of a Discord, or you just do the YouTube thing. Like, trading has the lowest barrier to entry and such unlimited like potential. There's nothing like it. And that's part of what excites me about it too, that there's just not a ceiling, because I'm a goal setter and I'm an achiever, right? And so I'm like, the fact that I could do this until I'm like 80 years old and always be breaking through new things and striving for new goals is like so exciting to me from like just a growth perspective, right? Like, if you ever encounter a trader who says that they've arrived and they've figured it out, I would say run the other direction, because no one has the markets perfectly figured out,
Yeah, there's always something to fine tune in yourself, in your system, in your edge, in the way you manage it, in the way you manage your finances in general. Like, it's incredible. That's why that is a huge realization for me in 2024, is that like I am just at the tip of the iceberg with this thing. And now that I've got a little bit of a leg to stand on, like I just want to do it endlessly forever. And I want to like be wealthy enough to do it for a month in Italy, but like I don't ever want to not do it. Like I can't even imagine myself going on a long vacation not with like full system in order to like trade a little bit, because that's how much I love it. But also the financial freedom aspect of it is powerful. And I love what you said about take your time, because that was going to be one of my final questions for you, was advice for newer traders that you have figured out along the way that has been helpful for you. And I love that one, because I also would, like in the beginning when the accounts were so cheap, I would try and batch them with like 5 at a time and pass them all together. And now my system is totally different. Like I have groups of PAs, and then once I pass a new one and I get it to PA, I'll just add in one new eval and like continue copying and adding them in. So it's like a slow growth in confluence with like how it's going for me as a trader. And I'm not trying to like have these landslide days where I'll pass the account in 1 or 2 days. Because that's just not how I want to trade. I want to take a bite out of the trade plan that I see, and I want to lock it in, and I wanted to let it compound over time. And that has helped me be so much more sustainable in recent months as well, of like figuring out that you don't have to front load all of these accounts just because they allow it. And it kind of slows down your psychology a little bit to a more manageable system of like taking the stairs up instead of just literally trying to climb a straight rock wall. It's just more sustainable for the long term, which I really love. So pivot off of that. Any other tips you have for anyone who is still getting their footing?
Honestly, just stick with it, I think. And I mean, the biggest advice I would say for people who want to get into trading, like, or are just barely getting into it, is do not marry a strategy out the gate. Like, that was my biggest issue, is every time I came across a strategy. So the first line strategy, I did that for like 6 months and I wasn't willing to let go of the fact that it wasn't working for me. And in my defense, I didn't really know that there was anything else out there. But then I started seeing this other stuff and I'm like, oh, wow, like this makes so much more sense. Right. But I kind of think of it, sorry, I'm like really big on analogies if you haven't picked up on that.
I love it. They're always on
but,
point. So carry on.
but yeah, I think of it like dating, right? Like, like you're not gonna marry someone after the first date, right? You want to find out about them, you want to understand how they work, you want to know what their habits are, like you want to be exposed to the good parts and the bad parts. And I think that similarly with trading strategies, like there's no perfect strategy. Every single trading strategy has drawbacks and it has things that are good about it, and you have to figure out what makes sense to you and what resonates with you. And I think I would have wasted a lot less time and money if I spent my early days just trying to generally understand what strategies are out there and then figure out what clicks and then focus on it and commit to it after that. It's like kind of like, you're on Tinder and you're swiping and then you go on a few dates. And then I've never actually been on Tinder, but I hear that's how it works. Tinder's bad now, right? Maybe you're on Hinge now.
I think that there's a lot of them now, and I can't keep up either.
But you go on a few dates and then you figure out, oh, like I like this guy. And then you start, getting more serious, and then you become exclusive and you stop dating. Similarly, you stop strategy hopping and you focus on that one thing and you figure out if it works. And then, like don't invest all of your eggs into one thing in one basket. I'm serious, because I spent a lot of money on different mentors and coaches and things like that for strategies that ultimately weren't the right strategy for me. And if I didn't rush into it and figure that out first, I would have a lot more money in my pocket and not have wasted my time and money on trying to learn something that wasn't the right fit for me, if that makes sense.
Dude, I think that is my favorite analogy of the day. Because, as you're dating, you figure out what your deal breakers are and what you think is hot. And then you're going to like gravitate towards what's good for you and what's not when you pick your next one, and you're going to figure it out as you go. And then finally something sticks and speaks to you and you go deep with it. And so very, very well said. And I don't know.
Once you marry, if you're trying to stay married, like the person's going to change. So you have to know that you're going to grow and change together and be able to adapt. And similarly, like when you commit to a strategy, you have to also be able to grow and adapt as the market changes.
Water it,
I could go all day with this analogy.
It's amazing.
It's a good one.
All right, well, let's let it lie there. And I think that is a killer point to leave with all of our guests today. And, maybe we'll have to do this again, because I could go with your analogies all day. And we're going to link to your Instagram in the description below, because I think that you are an amazing person to follow. And I really appreciate the realness that you have been bringing to your journey and what you're showing out there. And thank you so much for being on Market Mama's podcast today, because this is really fun to talk with another trading mama. I think women need more representation in the world of trading, because we're amazing and we can do it just the same as any other human. And I am so glad that you are here to help me represent the mamas and the ladies in the market. And we love everyone. So carry on. Don't quit trading. Jen, thank you for being here.
Thanks so much for having me. It was so fun.
Yeah. All right. Happy trading, everyone. Take care.